Hello, everyone, worldwide on the iRacing Esports Network. We are SimSpeed TV. This is the Alpinestars Geodesic Racing Sprint Series Australasia, the top Grand Touring series in the AusNZ SimSphere. We've got a 45-minute race at Twin Ring Motegi tonight, here for round 3 of the championship. Certainly going to be an interesting one, a very smooth track, lots of braking zones, and we are racing into the night. My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, David Haynes. Once again, David, welcome. Twin Ring Motegi, fantastic track, and the racing that this series has had over the past 2 rounds certainly brings things into a positive direction.
Yeah, no doubt. Taking a look at some of those facts there. It's going to be a 45-minute race. 50% fuel tank restriction means there's going to be a pit stop for everyone in the field. Be interesting to see when and what the strategies are for that. I think most interestingly though, with the setting sun that we've got, track temp right now, it's around 23 degrees, but it'll cool off a little bit as we go, as the sun gets deeper in the sky and then eventually sets during this race. So it'll be visually interesting to look at, as well as giving us lots of strategy to play with and testing the setups of all of our teams and drivers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This track is a very testing one, built in the mid-1990s and is most well known as the host of the Japanese Motorcycle Grand Prix for quite a few years. Also IndyCar raced here on the oval, which you can see in that shot right now. That's why it's called Twin Ring Motegi. They have a road course and an oval. Unfortunately, the oval can no longer be used in real life due to the 2011 earthquake. However, iRacing's preserved it in all of its glory, so you can race it whenever you want on your home PC, along with the road course. We've only got about 80 seconds left in this practice session, and practice times are looking pretty close, as per usual. We got Jackson Harlow on the top of the timesheets with Ross Rizzo not too far behind. Ryan Jerrick and Luis Paulo Gallon up there as well. I'm really interested to see how the drivers go here, because we do have quite a few contenders, quite a few stories taking place in this championship, of course, considering the switch from GTE to GT3. We've had some drivers take to these cars a little better than others.
Yeah, we've got our top 3 from last season right up there. Rizzo, Gallon, and John Peasnick. So I think those are very likely going to be 3 names we're going to see right up the top all season long. But then you got the likes of Jackson Suzlin Harlow, a little bit of a young gun for TTL. We've got Rob Harris in there. We've got Damien McPhee showing up from time to time. Not sure if he's here this week. Yeah, but certainly some new names, some old hands, and exactly right. These GTE cars, they handle a little bit differently, set up a little bit differently, make their speed a little bit differently than a GT3 car. Now, talent still rises to the top, but there are some drivers who maybe didn't favour the GT3s, who now find themselves in these GTEs competing towards the pointy end.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think the likes of Brett Cananzi, Jackson Harlow are among those. Luis Paulo Gallon has had a bit of a difficult time adapting to these cars, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes. However, we are in the race session now. Here is the grid. John Peasnick has managed to nab pole position there, with Forza El Nabi of Trick Sim Sports not far behind. Jackson Harlow in 3rd, Gallon 4th, and Rizzo, our reigning champion, completing the top 5. Sizlovsky recently left All-Star Motorsports in 6th, Mark Rayner in 7th, 8th Martin Silvassi, and Adam Briggs and Hayden Dodman of Torque Inc. round out the top 10.
Yep, as they all continue to grid up. 11th place is Ryan Jarrett, 12th is Altus Esports' Zach Hanlon, 13th is Richard Hunter, 14th is Reese Keane, 15th is Brett Cananzi, and 16th, we just saw him in Rallycross, now he's here in a GT machine, it's Torque Inc.'s Mitchell McLeod, 17th is Daniel Cheney, 18th Justin Strickland, 19th Dominic Ferraris, and 20th is David Jellings.
Benjamin Johnson lining up in 21st there for CMR. Paul Mansell and Alex Court follow him. Rob Harris in 24th with Wayne Hewitt, Matt Huppertz, Stephen Bartholomew, Paul Nichols, Paul Wood. G'day, Paul. You might remember me from the Race 07 days. Phil Gadd rounding out the top 30.
Cars are rolling. It's not very long until they will get that green flag. Short formation lap here, so we'll show the rest of the grid on your screen there. 33 cars, and I think almost all of them have taken to the grid. So just after this next corner, the pace car will peel off, and John Peasnick will lead the field to the green flag.
Certainly will. Very difficult sequence of corners to end the lap here at Twin Ring Motegi. A fast left going into a hard left-right chicane, and that's almost a hairpin ending the lap. Peasnick going early there, straight at the apex, and the green flag will fly, and we will be racing. Drivers immediately going straight to the pit wall to try and block advances from other racers, and Peasnick continuing to lead the way, but they're side by side in the background. Gallon just making his way past Ross Rizzo, who was really pressuring him there. Back in the field, they're continuing to sort themselves out. Nice and clean so far, but they got a few more braking zones still to go. Leaders just coming out of the first one of them.
Yep, this sort of first sector of the track, a lot of 90-degree corners, a lot of straights, and then the second sector is Zach Hanlon all over the grass. The second sector's got a lot more flowing corners, so there's different characters to the different sectors around here. And Zach Hanlon has got himself back on track there in his Ford GT, crosses in front of Ryan Jerrick, I think. Certainly an adventurous first lap for him.
Yeah, certainly. And this sequence of corners that they're just going through now, brilliant set of turns. A couple of sweepers going into a very heavy braking zone for a hairpin. You can see that Harlow is really pressuring Forzan El Nabi there. Most of the field just going into single file, but then they come to what is probably the slowest corner on the circuit. It's very long, seemingly endless hairpin. It looks like Harlow has not... Oh dear, that is not good. That's Paul Nichols there, having a spin at the back of the field. Managed to get going, though. No damage there, so see how he goes. It looks like we've had a pass for second. No, we haven't. My apologies. I have made a big mistake.
In the order that they were on the grid, Peasnick, El Nabi, Suzlin, Harlow, and a problem now, I think that on board with Wayne Hewitt of Red Pepper Racing is a big dent in his rear wing. I guess we'll see what happened to him.
Yeah, certainly. So, instant replay thanks to CPR Kart Parts here. Thank you for your support, guys. Let's have a look at what happened to Wayne Hewitt here. Oh, he just lost it under brakes. Bit of a lock-up. And it was contact with the wall. Good thing no one else got involved in that, though.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe a problem with his ABS settings or a brake bias.
There's no ABS in these cars, David.
Apologies. Yes, there's ABS in the GT3s. So yeah, that's a problem with the ABS. He hasn't got any. So
yes.
Yeah, the problem exists in the driver's seat there or with the brake bias.
Yes, indeed. So the field just continuing on. These 45-minute races are the usual format for this championship. We have the occasional enduro, but the vast majority of races on the schedule are 45 minutes in length. But they still have to treat it somewhat like an endurance race. They do have a fuel tank restriction. They do have to take care of their incident count and also have to take care of the cars racing around them. You can't really treat this like a full-on sprint race.
Yeah, exactly. There's still the strategy to play out, and they've still got maybe to look after the tyres, though not so hard at night with the cool track temperatures. I think Zach Hanlon is one driver who'll be thinking very carefully about his off-tracks and his incident points. Fourth place looks like... third place, looks like Jackson Susan Harlow's forming a little bit of a cork in the bottle here. Peasnick and El Nabi have scuttled away a tiny bit. Right behind Jackson Susan Harlow's TTL Esports Porsche 911 is Luis Paula Gallon, Ross Rizzo, and Scott Kozlowski. As we look, Matt Huppets, another driver having some issues further down the field.
Yeah, certainly. That's no good for him. Riding on board, though, with Adam Briggs as he chases down Mark Rayner, coming up to the second heavy braking zone on the track, having a little bit of a look. It's a very tempting spot to throw it up the inside, but the corner is a lot longer than you initially think. It's on for the lead. My goodness, have a look at Ross Rizzo all over the back of John Peasnick. Onto the grass. Sorry, that's Forzan El Nabi. My apologies. But these guys getting very close up the front. El Nabi's absolutely dropped Harlow there, and Harlow facing a lot of pressure from Gallon.
Yeah, I didn't see exactly what happened there, but Forzen El Nabi clearly had a run at John Peasnick, who's not giving him a car's width to the inside, forced El Nabi off onto the grass. Both of them carry on, no damage, but Peasnick is trying very, very hard to not let Trick Sim Sports driver Forzen El Nabi through. It has put these two a little bit closer to that battle pack behind Jackson Susan Harlow, Luis Polo Gallon, Ross Rizzo, and Scott Kozlowski.
Indeed. Paul Nichols has been given a black flag by race control. Not quite sure what that one was for. They come across the line once again, or is that the line for the East Circuit? I think it is. Yep. Those. This is another quirk of this circuit here at Twin Ring Motegi. Actually got two layouts that can be run simultaneously: the West and the East layout. East layout, of course, having its own pit lane. We visited that circuit in V8 Supercar racing quite a few times, but I haven't seen many races here at the full Twin Ring Motegi layout broadcasted here.
Yeah, exactly. One of those circuits with two pit lanes, like Yas Marina Circuit, Abu Dhabi, or some of the other ones. Mitchell McLeod going rally crossing. Mate, that was earlier. This is Sprint Series Australasia now.
Yeah, Reese Keane, unfortunately involved in that as well. That was a replay. We go back live, and they're continuing to battle quite hardly here for 7th backwards. It's quite immense seeing these cars in such close quarters, and Hayden Dodman, McLeod's teammate, going for the move there on Adam Briggs. Briggs not letting him get away with it. Look at the traction on the outside. That is fantastic. Gonna go side by side through this flat out right, but oh goodness me, we called a really awesome side by side battle last Thursday, David, but unfortunately these cars don't quite have the aero grip that the F3 has, so I don't think that'll be an iRacing February top 10 for us.
Oh, deep on the brakes to the inside. I believe that's McLeod, isn't it?
No, that's Dodman.
Dodman, an unpainted Ferrari GTE. Side by side, they still are though. So no matter what we call, plenty of action, Reese, and they're gonna stay side by side. Am I repeating myself from a week ago? As they come down towards the last two corners, the inside line belonging to Adam Briggs there, I believe.
Yeah, we've got the Altus Esports car there in the background looking to try and make some moves. That's Hanlon there in the background. Oh my God, Briggs! Oh, round he goes. And that is the prime example of how difficult that last sequence of turns at Motegi is.
It's pretty unsighted. There's a couple of complex apexes in there, and he's just lost the rear of the car. Think he'll carry on no problems, but look a little bit higher up the field here, because now 9th place, Martin Silvassi. He lost 1 place from his starting grid, and Rack Hanlon is up 2 spots. We've got some dramas up for the lead though, Reese.
Yeah, we certainly have. Peasnick having technical issues, and Forzen El Nabi has assumed the lead of this race. Not quite sure what's happened to Peasnick there, but that is certainly going to be a heartbreaker for him. Looking at Dominic Ferraris, though, trying to defend here. I believe that might be Reese Keane. Whoa, have a look at that Ferrari getting in on the back of that battle. That's quite interesting. That was Paul Mansell for Armatrix Racing. Unfortunately, ending up behind. And Rizzo with tech issues as well. We're seeing quite a few. Oh my goodness! Oh dear, Reese Keane. Little bit of over-rotation there on the apex, but he's managed to get it going. Quite a bit of shuffling going around back there in the pack, but oh my goodness, technical issues all over the place at the moment.
Yeah, so the disappearance of John Peasnick, just like Harold Holt, has promoted someone else to the lead. And now Jackson Susan Harlow is also elevated into 2nd place. He's still leading that train in the same order. Luis Polo Gallon behind him. Behind that, defending champ Ross Rizzo, and tailing along, maybe saving some fuel, maybe thinking about his strategy, or maybe just using the slipstream. 5th place now is Scott Kozlowski, and we see them coming down, finish 1 more lap.
Yes, indeed. Harlow doing very well to hold off Luis Polo Gallon's advances. And in the box seat at the moment is Forzen El Nabi. He's got quite a good lead. He doesn't have to worry too much about these guys behind them. They're fighting amongst themselves. And at this early stage of the race, we're only coming up to about 10 minutes worth of racing completed. So this is a really good position for El Nabi to be in right now, because you can see Gallon, he's just trying to get on the back there of the second place car. Zach Hanlon, though, this is going to be a pass for 9th position. Ryan Jerrick battling quite hard with Zach Hanlon there, but Hanlon has managed to make it work this time.
Yeah, exactly. Moving up through the order a little more is Zach Hanlon after a very dramatic first lap. Still, Jackson Suzlin-Harlow just holding on or just dragging these guys along, whatever the case may be, because I haven't seen any looks to the inside, any moves to suggest these guys are doing anything, but just circulating around together. Then maybe after the first pit stops, they'll really turn it on.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the way of things. Like, yeah, I think back to my earlier remarks about drivers treating this a bit more like an endurance race. Oh, speaking of, unfortunately, Phil Gadd making his way back onto the circuit after an off, and Gallon continuing to pressure Harlow up in front. Riding on board with them, we can see the kind of wheel work you got to deal with around this track, and that final complex, it's so hard to get an efficient exit.
Yeah, exactly. In a bunch of different cars, you're never quite sure you hit the correct line, and we're seeing the conditions out there, despite a cool track and the night times, everyone's looking like they're dealing with a little bit of oversteer, like all their cars are a little bit leery. The balance of the car isn't quite giving everyone confidence, and they're not driving to 100% right now. So Ross Rizzo is looking pretty close to Luis Polo Gallon, and Scott Zylowski looking like he's dropped off a little bit, as using all of the available circuit and then more as Luis Polo Gallon. We had someone else in a Ford GT around. I think they've got no damage and managed to continue, has Benjamin Johnson. We keep watching this fantastic battle for second place, close as it's ever been, Reese.
Yeah, certainly. Rizzo's right on the back of them here, and that is the first defensive move we've seen in a while from Harlow. He knows that Gallon is coming. It's easy to defend through that section because you've got those very long flowing corners, but up into this braking zone, Gallon is going to use that out braking to all of the advantage that he possibly can. Look at Rizzo! He's getting in on this as well! This is the kind of racing that Motegi brings, especially in these night conditions. The reason I think we've seen so many cars spinning is because of the lower temperatures and the drivers having to deal with that twitchiness. But now this is a 4-car battle here for second place, and then Rizzo's going to go through there on Gallon, but has he overshot? He's lost a little bit of apex speed. He's managed to hold on though.
So Luis Polo Gallon going offline to try and get around Jackson Suzlin-Harlow, in the end compromised him and let Ross Rizzo through up into third place.
Yeah, and once again, Gallon running a little bit wide over that exit curb, so that's going to give a bit of an advantage to the Ferrari behind him. Meanwhile, Zach Hanlon can't seem to be left alone by Ryan Jerrick, can he?
No, certainly not. They're in a close battle there for 9th place. Richard Hunt is still on behind them as well. Watching from this great camera angle right now, you get a great look at all of those lights on the Ferrari GT.
Yeah, you absolutely do. All 6 of them. That's pretty intense, and
like a spider.
Yeah, certainly. Well, do spiders have like 8 or 10 eyes?
I don't know. Sure. I don't get too close to them.
We're sim racing esports casters, not insect biologists. Looking on board here at Kozlowski from Rayner's position, that is quite interesting. Kozlowski dropping off from the second place battle. Not quite sure what happened to him there. He was right on the back of those guys. Have a look at Gallon. He's really putting on a show in Rizzo's mirrors. Doesn't seem to be doing much though.
No, I'm not quite sure that will upset Ross Rizzo at this point, but whatever happened for Scott Kozlowski, it's dropped him back off that train, and now he's 5th place, leading a different train of Mark Rayner, Hayden Dodman, and Martin Silvassi. So it's battles everywhere up and down the field, as going wide is Jackson Suzlin-Harlow. Now Ross Rizzo fancies 2nd place if he can get it. Has Suzlin-Harlow gone in too deep? Has he compromised his exit off the final corner? My goodness, but he's struggling somewhat regardless.
Yes, he's compromised his exit just a little bit, but It doesn't seem to have faltered too much. Kozlowski under a lot of pressure there from Mr. Rayner, and Hayden Dodman looking to get in on this as well. I'd be interested to see what's happened with Kozlowski in the last couple of laps, because that's bizarre how much he's dropped off.
Yeah, don't see any damage on the car. He must have just spun it around or gone off the track somewhere and carried on. He's got Rayner, Dodman and Silvassi right behind him. A little bit of a Ferrari train here for 5th, 6th and 7th. And that Porsche 911 RSR, Trick Sim Sports, hanging on behind.
Yeah, I believe that's Martin Silvassi there behind them, fighting for that particular position. Going through this section, it's so difficult to keep that front end grip up, because as we take a look at the battle for second once again, these GTE cars are quite a bit aero dependent for their category of racing. I did talk about the fact that they don't have as much aero grip as other cars, but it still does play a significant part in the way these cars handle tracks like Motegi. And Motegi, I think, is a very good track for these cars. It's very smooth. It's very
Rizzo's going
soft
for second
start,
place.
and there we go. Rizzo all the way through there, and move done. Very nice. Absolutely committed and staking his claim for the second place position in this race. Love it.
Yeah, smooth as you like. That's a pretty good pass. He gets a bit of grass on the exit of the final corner. He has to go to the inside to defend the feisty Jackson Susan Harlow, who in the end can't get to the inside. So into turn one they go. Harlow's still trying to go around the outside. Rizzo's got him blocked there. But all this does is bring Luis Paulo Gallon into the fray, and he is an opportunist of the highest order. Harlow looks to the inside of turn three now.
He's overshot. He's absolutely overshot that. My goodness. It's very difficult to pinpoint the braking zone for that corner in any case, but when you're running alongside another car in those dark conditions, Suzlin Harlow unfortunately finding out the hard way that Motegi bites quite hard. Now he might just fall into the back of this here Ferrari train of Kozlowski, Rayner and Dodman. These guys are continuing to just run line astern, threatening to make moves. I'll tell you about one guy that is threatening to make moves, always has and always will. That's Gallon. How much has he caught up to Rizzo right here? This is pretty interesting.
Yep, and despite that, Jackson Susan Harlow hasn't fallen too far behind. It only takes a little bit of a battle, a little bit of a mistake from second and third. He'll be back in there. Your race leader, Forzan El Nabi, has absolutely galloped away, and it's all on 6th place down, Rayner and Hayden Dodman.
Yeah, Kozlowski's broken away from these guys, and Dodman very committed on the brakes. Don't know if he would have overshot that. Rayner having to take a bit of evasive action there behind him, but Dodman through. Have a look behind them. Look at Zach Hanlon and the likes of the people around him. Hanlon right on the back almost of Silvassi now. This is a proper train here for the last half of the top 10.
Yeah, two little battles joining together. So now Dodman, Rayner, Silvassi, Hanlon, Jarek Hunter, all basically within 1 second. It's going to be so close, and it's going to mean that the pit stop times, how much fuel they take, could be absolutely critical to jump someone through the pit stop phase, which will be coming up pretty soon.
Exactly right, and for the guys that have shown that they have the pace to be running near the front, but for one reason or another have found themselves back in the pack due to mistakes or contact or whatever has happened, the pit stop phase would be a good place for them to get out of that hecticness and into some clear air and get some of those times down, hopefully undercut the people around them, get a good position out of that.
So Trick Sim Sports have first and second position wrapped. We're looking on board just then with Martin Silvassi in 8th place. I'm sure would love to make some positions, get up closer and join his teammates and make it a good points haul for them. But he's stuck in plenty of traffic.
Yeah, he certainly is. Is running up behind Rayner there and facing a lot of pressure from behind from Hanlon. Speaking of Hanlon, he seems to have finally gotten a bit of a gap from Ryan Jarek, and Silvassi just lifting off slightly. Silvassi is definitely one of the drivers that flies a bit under the radar at Trick Sim Sports. You see the likes of Rizzo, El Nabi, and Anthony Winkleman getting the headlines and getting the wins and all that sort of stuff. Martin Silvassi, he's slightly in the background, I think, when it comes to Trick, but he is still a fantastic racer in his own right, and he wouldn't be at that team for nothing. Oh, Cananzi. Goodness me, that is a very awkward spot for someone to go off. Brett Cananzi, I think that might have just been a spin out of the final corner. Let's have a look at a replay, David, see what happened.
Definitely lost control in some way. Did he jump or was he pushed? Well, he got some grass on the exit of the corner before. Maybe still had some of that on his tyres. I'm struggling to see the replay here, Reese, but I think that's all by himself.
Yeah, definitely seemed that way. Car just rotated through the kink. I think might have just locked the rears slightly. Little bit too much grass and dirt on those tyres. But Silvassi, as we go back live, is still putting a lot of pressure on the back of Rayner, the number 7 there, in 7th place. Unfortunately, with the likes of Silvassi and Hanlon behind them, it might not be Rayner's lucky day.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some teams that are good in some GT machinery, Trick Sim Sports and Altus Esports behind you, you might feel that pressure. Zach Hanlon so deep on the brakes. Does he get it turned? Car behind will get in underneath as well. So what was an opportunistic move to try and grab Martin Silvassi? We'll see Ryan Jerrick on the inside for the next corner.
And can hear Zach Hanlon from inside that cockpit saying, "Oh no, not again. Thought I'd left you behind, mate." But we'll see if Ryan Jerrick can... Whoa, goodness me, Silvassi just slightly overshooting that braking zone. So this has brought him back into the clutches of Hanlon well and truly. He could have almost dropped Hanlon after Zachary ran wide, but unfortunately, the track has other ideas, and this has turned into one of the closest battles on track right now. But there's battles everywhere you look.
Yep, exactly. The big red box around the battles on my timing screen, well, it is lighting up just about everyone. And Rob Harris, Valkyrie Sim Racing, is one of the first guys to jump into the pit lane. We're just about at the halfway point now. We'll see what happened to him. He's going in towards the pit lane. Tricky pit entry here. A little bit of a kink in it. What has he gone and done?
Seems nothing. But I think that's still a good replay to show just how tricky that pit exit is, because it's got a very tight chicane on the entry that's only one lane wide. So you basically have to put on your parallel parking moves to get yourself into that pit lane cleanly.
Speaking of parking it, Ross Rizzo might have to do that on the apex to keep Luis Paulo Gallon behind, who's close as he's ever been. Rizzo taking an earlier apex there, and Gallon sort of taking the late apex. Ross Rizzo disappears for just a second on our screens, reappears, so not suffering the fate of unfortunate John Piesnik. He carries on. He's not looking entirely stable. He still holds second place over third place Luis Paulo Gallon, and these two guys have now pulled 3 seconds over that monstrous train behind them that encompasses 4th through to 10th.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to want. These guys, of course, they love a good race, both of these gentlemen, but it would definitely be better for both of their results if they could leave all of the battling behind, just fight amongst themselves for a bit, get that gap, and then they would be both at least secured a podium.
Yeah, precisely, and I'm sure they both know when they're intending on pitting. Can't be too far away. With a 50% fuel restriction, I imagine these guys can only go a little bit over 30 minutes, which is just... no, my brain stopped doing numbers. We're maybe 26, 27 minutes into the race.
Goodness me, where's all the time gone? I could swear we were at 10 minutes in only a few minutes ago. That is... my brain's just stopped working itself, David. But Zach Hanlon and Ryan Jerrick continuing to fight. When have we not seen these guys close together?
Yeah, I don't think Zach Hanlon's spent a lap more than half a second away from another car. He's got Ryan Jerrick right behind him. He's got Martin Silvassi in front. And he's got an incident limit to worry about. Jarek thinks about diving to the inside for that tight left-hander. Can't get the overlap. Zach Hanlon takes the racing line that time, but he cannot shake Ryan Jarek, whose Ferrari is right there underneath the hulking diffuser of the Ford GTE.
Yeah, certainly. We currently look at Mark Rayner going through the last few turns of the track, chasing down who I believe is Scott Kozlowski, but no, he comes into the pits. So this is a pretty big decision here. We got a couple of other guys jumping into the pits as well. Rizzo stayed out there. David Jellings staying out, but Zach Hanlon going very deep into the first couple of turns, and this double apex first turn, it's super good for racing.
Yeah, but a wiggle from Ryan Jarek couldn't keep the momentum. He gives the racing line and the track position back to Zach Hanlon, but again, it's another lap where these two are looking forward, looking in their mirrors, thinking about where they can defend, where they can attack. There's lap traffic getting out of the way in front of them. Big flash of the headlights, very visible at night time here from Zach Hanlon. He doesn't want his battle disrupted whatsoever. He doesn't want anything costing him time to Ryan Jarek.
Yeah, certainly not. We're just hearing from our director that Forza Nabi lost a lot of time on his previous lap, which is quite interesting. That's something to look at, but 0.7 of a second time loss, which is something that we don't usually see from a driver from the likes of El Nabi. He still maintains a good lead, though. Just a little inkling of maybe some issues for Forzan.
Yeah, he's been very consistent up until this point, and as you say, still maintains a 6.5 second lead. It's very comfortable for him to be able to pit whenever suits him. You imagine the leader would stay out as long as they can with no traffic in front of them. It's all going well, so just stay out long as possible. We've seen that battle second and third, but fourth place, my goodness, it still goes on. Jackson Susan-Harlow leading Scott Kozlowski, leading Hayden Dodman. I don't see any of them diving for the pit lane this time, all electing to stay out, run those tanks emptier, and maybe trying to find the pace with a lesser fuel load instead of pitting earlier.
Yeah, I think at a track like this, that kind of strategy is much better, because you got to remember, Motegi has an interesting mixture of corners. It's got kinks and hairpins for the most part, but it's also got those two sweepers in the middle of the lap. You got less fuel in the car, that's less mass for you to throw around through all those different kinds of turns. Definitely brings a greater benefit.
Yeah, it's just physics. Anytime you've got more of that weight, you've got to turn it, you've got to stop it, you've got to accelerate it. And that slows you down in just about every phase of trying to drive a race car. Not slowing down is Ryan Jarek, who's still absolutely behind Zach Hanlon, who cannot get rid of him.
Yeah, certainly not. Have a look at how close they are going into the sweepers. I love this section of the track. I'm sorry. Can't stop gushing about it. It's a fantastic section. But Jarek having to back off slightly through there. It's in these hairpins, in these corners that are very sharp, very harsh, that you see Jarek getting onto the back of Hanlon much nicer.
Yep, precisely. It's one of the things the Ferrari is generally considered to be better at. Some of those slower sections, getting the power down, or something like the Ford GT, you think of more with the flowing corners.
Oh, no.
And there's a problem for, I think that's Brett Cananzi again. I think he's just taken a toe, so maybe damage to the car. Replay here.
Yeah, interesting. I thought I saw Rayner's name pop up on screen there as well. So, we'll see what's happened to Cananzi here. Just coming up into the sweepers section of the track, I believe. So, oh dear. Car just got away from him there. Little bit of a wiggle, and he couldn't save it. Well, he didn't get any damage from that. I think, no, he's just decided to take it back to pit lane, decided he's had enough.
Yeah, for the first time, he's got a big whop of oversteer through that corner section. Maybe just the balance of the car just frustrating him too much. You've got Martin Silvassi, Ryan Jarek, and some others on the pit lane now. Some guys from higher up the order making a pit call.
Yeah, Martin Silvassi as well exiting ahead of Jarek. And Jarek, we're hearing, had a very short pit stop. That could prove decisive, either in his battle for Hanlon, or whether or not he'll finish the race. Possibly he was saving fuel behind Hanlon.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see with some of these other drivers. Do they come in now potentially try and cover it, or do they stay out long as they can? Well, Forza El Nabi, Ross Rizzo, and Luis Paulo Gallon still out there. And Luis Paulo Gallon is just 5/10 behind Ross Rizzo. And here, Forza El Nabi's just set the fastest lap of the race, so if the track cools a little bit as the fuel burns off, he's absolutely finding pace. So I think that works for him to stay out as long as he is able.
Yeah, looking extremely comfortable is Mr. El Nabi, and there we go. He goes for the pits. Little bit of a lockup, and he's actually overshot the chicane. That is not going to put him in good eyes with iRacing's automated penalty system, I don't think.
Yeah, that could be a penalty for unsafe pit entry. I guess we'll see how long he's held stationary. That could have been a very, very costly mistake. Lots of other guys follow him in as well, but staying out, Ross Rizzo and Luis Paulo Gallon. So El Nabi, 10 seconds stationary for El Nabi, and he gets going again. So maybe he's just gotten away with that. Maybe that's the quickest pit entry, but it didn't look like what you'd want to do. It looked a very risky move.
Yeah, it certainly did. That's very unfortunate. You would have at least gotten an automated slowdown penalty from that one. But such is Motegi. Martin Silvassi, though, coming just behind Jackson Harlow. And there we go. Look, Ryan Jerrick has managed to jump Hanlon there. That is really interesting. Jerrick with some technical issues, though. Zach Hanlon has got a face full of Ferrari.
Yeah, the tables have absolutely turned here, but they're as close as they were before, just with the order reversed. And if Jerrick can make that Ferrari very wide, no one will be getting past him. And Richard Hunter is trying to make his way through past on Mark Rayner.
Yes, indeed. These guys battling quite hard. Rayner has been in the wars, I think, a bit in this race. He's always had someone to battle with, but now this battle for 8th, 9th, and 10th, Hayden Dodman, Ryan Jerrick, and Zach Hanlon has gotten very warm. It's getting a bit toasty in those cockpits, I believe.
Yeah, Jerrick looking like he'd like to get past Dodman sooner rather than later. Misses the apex a little bit. Zach Hanlon is right there. Don't want to take my eyes off this, but our leaders have come into the pits as well. So if this settles out, we'll see Ross Rizzo, Luis Paulo Gallon, both on the pit lane. They'll be thinking about how much fuel they need to take, because taking just a couple litres too many would cost them the spot to the other driver.
Yeah, certainly would. So that's something that we will have to monitor, see who makes it out of pit lane ahead. Will it be Ross Rizzo or Luis Paulo Gallon? It is going to be Rizzo. Gallon is still stopped. What is going on there? 15 seconds stop. Goodness me.
That's very bizarre. Doesn't seem like a penalty or anything. Maybe he's just taken way too much fuel or had a teeny bit of damage he wanted to repair. Not sure about that, but that's given Ross Rizzo a lot of breathing room, because Forzan El Nabi inherits the race lead once again.
Yes, indeed. So no dramas there for El Nabi. That, contrary to what we were thinking about before, these guys have started to space out a little bit. Zach Hanlon taking a... Wow, that's quite a narrow line through that section. I'm not sure why he was doing that, but he's fallen back slightly from Jerrick and Dodman, which is interesting to see. He's actually run wide there as well. Oh no, that's Gallon. Gallon spun.
Second mistake in as many laps. That's going to cost him all the way down to 12th place. Replay, of course, how he's done that. Looped it around.
Yeah, so what went on for him there? He seemed okay coming down the straight here, but remember, this was his first lap out of the pits, so just locked the rear slightly, and around he went. There was no recovering that, unfortunately. Big shame.
That thing was loose on entry. The moment he put any steering input in, the rear tyres weren't having any of it, so it must have been rear tyres locked up or something. We watched a bit of traffic for Jackson Susan Harlow and Martin Silvassi in the battle for 4th place, and I tell you what, hasn't Silvassi done well through the pit stop cycle? He was battling down in 8th or some, and now he's looking at grabbing 4th place.
What I said about Silvassi before, a little bit in the background, bit of a dark horse, but he definitely comes to the fore when the time comes. And that is proof of that. Silvassi has had a bit of a quiet one, but in a case like this, that is what you need more than anything. As everyone has pitted, we are racing to the end.
The field is cleansed, and we're watching some of the bigger trains we had have been broken up into 2 trains. So we've got Hayden Dodman, Ryan Jerrick, and Zach Hanlon for 6th, 7th, and 8th. And these guys have both all dropped back a little bit from the battle for 3rd, which is Solowski, Harlow, and Silvassi. But I tell you what, Zach Hanlon is going to need, once again, to try and find a way past Ryan Jerrick. Lots of battles in the top 10. Look at those 2 3-car battles we've got.
Yeah, excellent stuff from these guys as they go underneath the bridge, the oval passing over them there. And I tell you what, the stars of this particular section of the race, I think, have been those 2 red Ferraris, Dodman and Kozlowski. They've both managed to play the race, play their cards just right. They are at the front of their respective battle packs and looking very good.
Yeah, when Jerrick came out of the pits, he was right on the back of Hayden Dodman, but I think Hayden Dodman's found a little bit more balance, a little bit more composure, because now it looks more like Jerrick is under pressure from Hanlon than Jerrick is pressuring Dodman.
Yeah, definitely seems that way. It's certainly interesting to see. Jerrick, though, I think we still got to think about his fuel. How much fuel does he have left? Does he have enough fuel to make it to the finish? Does he have to fuel save a little bit more? Because remember, his pit stop was bizarrely short.
You correct me here if I'm wrong, but I'm seeing 8.8 seconds of fuel for Ryan Jerrick, whereas Ross Rizzo, who most of the race had no slipstream, no draft, took 8.9. We know Ross Rizzo is absolute feather on the throttle. He can get away with that kind of thing. So if Ryan Jerrick's been just a bit clever through the first stint of the race, using the slipstream, rolling out of the throttle early in some places, I absolutely think it's possible, but he'd need to be very confident in that number.
Yeah, he'd have to be. We did see when he was behind Hanlon, he was rolling out of the throttle a bit early, so who knows? Maybe this is the game that he's been playing all race, but I'll tell you what, he's actually done a good job to draw back up to the back of Dodman here.
Yeah, and time ticking away, Reese, as you say, flying by, nearly just 8 minutes left to go. Sooner or later, these guys are going to have to pull the elbows out, because right now they're being rather well behaved. Jerrick's so deep on the brakes behind Dodman there, but it compromises his exit. Someone is around. That's a Porsche. It's a blue Porsche, and it's Richard Hunter, and it's not immediately seeing where that is, but he's been around a few times. So grab a replay of that, see what happened, Reese.
Yeah, Richard Hunter not had the best race here. Quite a few issues, unfortunately, with that car. Once again, it's just losing the rear end on entry, and once that thing goes round, you got to remember it's a cool track, biases the car more towards oversteer, so you do not want to slide the car too much in those cold night conditions. Unfortunately, Richard Hunter falling foul of that, but who's that stop there?
Car, Dominic Ferraris, sorry, I've got that wrong, the colours are the same, but Dominic Ferraris is just parked on the exit of the final corner. Either he gets that moving soon, or there'll be a problem.
Yeah, certainly hope so, but Jerrick, super pressure being put onto the back of Dodman there. They have left Hanlon behind, so Jerrick obviously looking very confident here. Well, they're coming up on some traffic as well. That's not going to help matters. Jerrick just having a little bit of a look. Who was that flashing their lights? That must have been Jerrick. Oh
Zach
boy.
Hanlon's been dropped off the back a little bit of these two. So the two Ferraris galloping away just a little bit are the prancing horses. Hanlon's not entirely out of it behind them. This battle continues, as is it in front of them. It's where Solowski is still trying to hold off Jackson, Susan, and Harley, but watching Jerrick again deep on the brakes, closing right up, sort of compromising his run through the corner a little bit as they come towards the tightest hairpin.
Yes, indeed. Have a look at how confident he is under the brakes, using the Ferrari's natural advantages to their full capacity as Jerrick. And The differences between the cars we haven't really talked too much about, David. We have sort of alluded to it, but we haven't gone into the nitty-gritty of it. You did talk earlier about how the Ferrari is good at those point-and-shoot, slow mechanical grip styles of corners. The Ford is more aerodynamically inclined. It's good in those fast corners. And correct me if I'm wrong, but does the Porsche have a bit of a straight-line speed advantage?
I tell you what, I'm not that confident with these cars to be able to say it assertively, but, you know, Jackson Susan Harlow has closed up on Scott Zalowski and they dropped Martin Silvassi just a tiny bit. I think it depends on the track. I think the gearing, for a track where the gearing suits the Porsche, it can be pretty strong in a straight line, but then there's some, like Le Mans, where I think it doesn't have a tall enough gear.
Yeah. Well, that is the unfortunate side effect of cars that have fixed gear ratios like these ones. You can change the final drive, as Hanlon has a little bit of a moment on the exit of the hairpin, but the actual adjustments of the gears, you can't actually. I tell a lie. You can adjust the gears individually on these cars, but the adjustment options are very limited.
Yeah, exactly. Riding on board right now, Jackson Susan Harlow, all of those Christmas tree of shift lights in the steering wheel of the Porsche. You can see out that windscreen, the rear of the Ferrari. Scott Zalowski doing a very, very admirable job holding on to third place. And they cross the line in a couple of corners' time. I think they're only going to have 3 laps to go.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way, and Harlow is getting a bit frustrated here. He flashing his lights at Zalowski, trying to distract him there. Really falling into the clutches of Silvassi as well.
Yeah, looking good for Silvassi. Takes a line through the final corner that sets up an exit pretty well, and he keeps the foot planted through some of the shrubbery. He's right there. This is 3rd, 4th, and 5th. 3 laps to go. Zalowski needs to hold on, and Harlow and Silvassi need to get their elbows out, need to find some pace, need to get aggressive if they're going to grab a position from each other or from Zalowski. Silvassi playing mind games in the mirrors and rear cameras of Jackson Susan Harlow.
Yeah, the mind games really ramping up in these dying minutes of the race. Only 3.5 minutes to go, and more slight mind games as Harlow has a little bit of a look. These guys almost nose to tail now. Remember, this is the battle for 3rd place back. This is, as have many fights in this race, been absolutely scintillating from the time the green flag fell.
Yep, indeed. Close as they've ever been. Scott Zalowski's probably not one to crack under the pressure too easily. Now Silvassi's right there with Jackson Susan Harlow.
Yeah, I saw Harlow. He tried to make a move there, or at least went a bit to the inside behind Zalowski there. Not quite sure if that was an intended move or not. We've got another battle here. This is for 11th and 12th. Justin Strickland and Adam Briggs going side by side through this latter section of the track. These guys, we haven't focused too much on them, but they've been strong. Goodness me! Speaking of strong, that's a strong battle we're seeing right there for 4th place. Harlow and Silvassi going at it, and that has given Scott Zalowski the break he was probably wanting.
Yep, Silvassi deciding 2 laps to go, time to get the elbows out. Couldn't get the pass done on Jackson Susan Harlow. And you're exactly right. If you think about it again, turn 1 won't do it. But we've seen Harlow get tricked into going too deep onto the brakes before. And I'm sure Martin Silvassi will remember that. And as these 2 guys fight, honestly, they're only just over a second clear of Hayden Dodman and Ryan Jarrett, who've been motoring along. It's all going to heat up in the final 2 minutes race.
Yeah, certainly is. 1 minute and 45 seconds to go here. And this will likely be the penultimate lap for our leader, Forzan El Nabi. Harlow and Silvassi, they are not letting each other go here. And as you said, David, the pressure being put on Harlow might be his undoing, because we did see that mistake that he made earlier on in the race. Silvassi just keeping the pressure up a little bit. He's not right on the rear of the TTL Esports Porsche in front of him, but he is just staying maybe a car length behind, just letting him know he's there and that he's going to pounce.
Yeah, indeed. They come through your favourite corner, tight left-hander, and the exit a little bit in the favour of Martin Silvassi, but I tell you what, where he is right now, he'd have to be very, very bold and throw a move in very late to trouble Jackson Suzlin Harlow. Bit of a battle of youth versus experience.
Yeah, definitely seems that way, though I'm sure there's not much of a difference in age between these two. Silvassi, not so much of an old dog, but he has had quite a bit of experience in these cars, and Harlow, as you said, the young gun. As we cross the line for the white flag for these guys, it all comes down to this for Silvassi. Will he be able to nab 4th place from Jackson Harlow? With that lockup, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, Forza Narbi still with a massive lead, 10 seconds over his teammate Ross Rizzo, who's 8 seconds clear of this battle we're watching right here. Scott Kozlowski, Jackson Suzlin Harlow, Martin Silvassi, Hayden Dodman, Ryan Jerrick, and Zach Hanlon, all within a train now. And it's all spread out just a little bit. I think the closest is Zach Hanlon on Ryan Jerrick.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. So will Hanlon be able to get back at Jerrick for that pit maneuver that Jerrick made earlier? Yeah, good point. We'll have to wait and see. Jerrick, he seems to have actually dropped off quite a bit from Dodman from when we last saw him, getting on the brakes a bit early. Have a look at how deep Hanlon goes into those fast corners. That's the Ford GT with its aerodynamic performance there, but who knows what is going on in the cockpit of Ryan Jerrick here. He's just moving to the inside, turning that corner into more of a V shape than it already is, trying to defend as much as he can from Hanlon, but we will go to the leader, Forzan El Nabi, an absolutely, almost flawless performance aside from that pit entry, but a well-deserved victory nonetheless. He's going to take the win here.
Yeah, exactly. We've switched from GTEs to GT3s, but we haven't undone sort of the trick dominance. Forzan El Nabi and Ross Rizzo lead home the top 2 steps of the podium. And Scott Kozlowski's got 1 foot on the 3rd step. I don't think Jackson Suzlin Harlow is close enough to do anything, and I'm not sure that Zach Hanlon can do anything out of the final corner for 7th place on Ryan Jerrick. So great battles all race long.
Yeah, absolutely. Strickland and Briggs still going at it. Full momentum versus DPR. But it looks like it's going to work out in the way of the number 8 car, Justin Strickland, winning that battle out. Fantastic race here at Motegi, and they're flying in formation at Trick Sim Sports. That is as close as you could probably get to a perfect result for the team, given the circumstances.
Yeah, up 3 spots from his qualifying was Martin Silvassi. Not far enough to make it a Trick wipeout on the podium, but I think he can be proud of his efforts, and Trick Sim Sports can be pretty happy as well. Maybe some little burnouts for El Nabi, is that what he's thinking?
Perhaps. Might be a bit difficult to do in the Porsche, because you can only switch the traction control off for a few seconds at a time. He's decided to go back to the garage and celebrate. Here are the results then. Forzan El Nabi, your winner. Ross Rizzo, 10.8 seconds behind. That shows you the margin that El Nabi had, but a good one too for Trick Sim Sports. Scott Kozlowski completes the podium. Jackson Harlow in 4th. Silvassi, Dodman, Jerrick, and Hanlon completing the top 8 there, and the top 10 rounded out by Mark Rayner and a very unfortunate Luis Paulo Gallon. He'll be disappointed with that one.
11th place goes to Justin Strickland. 12th, Adam Briggs, couldn't quite grab him at the line. 13th, Richard Hunter. 14th, Daniel Cheney. 15th, David Jellings. 16th goes to Paul Mansell. 17th is Mitchell McLeod. 18th is Reese Keane. 19th is Rob Harris. 20th is Benjamin Johnson.
Alex Court is going to come home in 21st position. Paul Wood making it 22nd. Matt Huppert in 23rd. Stephen Bartholomew in 24th place. Top 30 rounded out by John Nicolaf, Will Barrington, Paul Nichols, David Farrelly, Dominic Ferraris, and Phil Gadd, who did not have the cleanest race. And we've only got 3 more cars here in this field. Brett Cananzi and Wayne Hewitt, both very unfortunate races for them. And John Peasnick, the big heartbreak story. Unfortunately, having technical issues, he could have won that.
Yeah, precisely, Reese. A great battle the whole way through, and my oh my, did the top 10 just really turned it on all race for 3rd through to about 8th position. We didn't know who was going to finish where, who had the upper hand, who had what for strategy. I loved that. These 45-minute races, pretty action-packed. And my goodness, I can't wait for the next round.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an absolutely fantastic race there. And we are going to go to our driver interviews presently. The first guy we're going to bring in is, of course, our race winner, Forzan El Nabi. Congratulations, Forzan. You are the winner. It seemed like a pretty quiet one for you, but I guess that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I guess so. Pretty much when John dropped out, unfortunately, it was pretty uneventful race on my end. I was wanting to go to bed for most of that race.
I'm sure you would have woken up with that pit entry though.
No, definitely wasn't planned. But yeah, I mean, didn't really practice any pit entries before the race, so yeah, came in pretty unprepared, and yeah, it was good to get the win, obviously, but yeah, that's about it.
Well, nonetheless, a 1-2 for Trick Sim Sports. You must be absolutely ecstatic with that.
Yeah, no, all the boys are really happy. Ross was really happy. Marty as well. He got 5th as well. So yeah, Trick boys will be pretty happy. I think Anthony's watching as well. He's off on holiday, and yeah, I promised him I'll win tonight. So yeah, might have a new contract on the table when he comes back.
Awesome stuff. Probably a good time to thank the sponsors then.
Yeah, obviously, definitely Trick Custom Fabrications and just Night Rider Designs as well. And just big thanks to Marty for the setup and Ross for the field work. And yeah, big thanks to you boys at SimSpeed as well for the broadcast, obviously.
Thank you very much, Forzan El Nabi. We're going to go to his teammate Ross Rizzo now. Mr. Rizzo, it was quite the eventful one for you. You got involved in a few battles, particularly with Gallon, but second at the end. You must be happy.
I'm absolutely stoked. That went an absolute treat. I could see. I was surprised to be keeping up with Louis and Jackson as well as I was, and I could see Louis was eager to get past, but Jackson, he was really trying hard to keep the position, and just felt look, if I just bide my time, the opportunity will come up, and in classic fashion, it did, like almost in successive laps. So absolutely worked a treat. I'd save fuel in the early part of the stint, so it just went super smoothly, despite as chaotic as the race looked.
And we figured you were fuel saving a little bit there, Ross. Going to the next round of the series at Sebring, you Trick guys seem to have this Porsche 911 RSR worked out a treat. What are your thoughts on going to Sebring in these GTEs?
Well, the Porsche's no BMW or Mercedes as much as we'd like them to be, but look, well, we're not sure. Sebring's a bit of a hit and miss track, as is Motegi, I guess. So look, we'll put our best foot forward, have a crack. Anthony should be back, so we'll be on firing on all cylinders, and hoping for the best.
Firing on all 6 cylinders of those flat 6 engines. Thank you very much for joining us, Ross Rizzo. Congratulations on the 1-2 for Trick Sim Sports. Finally, we're going to go to our 3rd place getter, Scott Zlowski. Scott, you have just left the team that you have been a part of for a very long time, but you seem to have not lost any of your pace.
Yeah, thanks, Reese. Tonight was actually my last race for ASM, so I'm really happy to be able to go out on a high at a track that I actually really don't like at all. Motegi is probably one of my most hated tracks in the world, so I'm actually a bit surprised. But I may as well take this opportunity to thank ASM for everything they've done for me over the last few years, and I made a lot of friends there, and we'll be catching up at the Bathurst 12 Hour on the weekend. But yeah, on to better things, bigger things, and hope the pace in the Ferrari stays.
Yeah, certainly seemed like you had it worked out there. What was the race like for you strategy-wise? We saw quite a bit of scintillation in the battles that you were a part of.
Yeah, it was pretty hectic. I was lucky enough to be able to stay with some of the faster guys. Obviously, Forzen and John before he dropped out were way too quick, but I was happy to stay a part of the train at the start of the race, which allowed me to save a bit of fuel and paid dividends during the pit stop. I took a punt on fuel and took a little bit less than I probably needed, and I was able to jump Jackson in the pit stop and come out, and then luckily I was able to hang on. And I was trying to back him into Martin a little bit. I know I saw them on the relative having a little battle, so that helped me out a bit as well. But yeah, the first half of the race really allowed me to play some games in the second half and end up on the bottom step of the podium.
Certainly did. Are you looking forward to Sebring?
Yeah, Sebring's a bit hit and miss for me sometimes. I'll either hit a 6 or I'll be out for a golden duck. So it'll be interesting when we start with some practice, and hopefully we'll be back here talking to you again next Wednesday night.
Under a different team colour?
Keep you an eye out.
Rightio. We'll see about that. Well, Scott Soslovsky, your last race for All Star Motorsports, and I suppose this will be your last time to thank the sponsors for them.
Yeah, thanks to Ratcorp and Sim Racing Collectibles, and again, just thanks to Brant Tucker and Brocade and everything they've done in terms of management over the years. Really appreciate it, and it's been great fun.
Very gracious exit from All Star Motorsports for Scott Sadlowski and a podium to top it off. Thank you very much for joining us, Scott. It's time for us to say goodbye, though, David. What a race that was.
Yep, round 3 in the bag. Elation for Trick Sim Sports, and I think heartache for John Peasnick and disappointment for Louise Polo Gallon, and Damien McPhee not showing up. So definitely going to shake things up in the drivers' standings order, and there's plenty of races still to go, and we know that it's always a long season in Alpinestars Geodesic Racing Sprint Series Australasia. The guys who just keep turning up, keep getting good results, that's where someone like Ross Rizzo can snag a championship. So we'll keep a very close eye on this series the coming rounds, and I hope you'll join us for them as well.
Yeah, certainly. We've seen Ross Rizzo snag a championship that way 3 times in a row now, haven't we? So he's definitely in a very good position for that. Well, tonight's proceedings are over, but the fun does not stop here on SimSpeed TV. Tomorrow night, we have got the Oceanic Sim Racing Formula 3 Championship over on our channel. Just go to SimSpeed and it will be there. On Friday, back here on the Esports Network, we've got the Australian Online Supercar Championship and Monday night official V8 Supercar Racing. And then next Wednesday, 1 week exactly from now, we're going to do all of this again. Rallycross at Sonoma, and then we're going here for Sebring. Very bumpy circuit, very old circuit, and awesome racing as per usual. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network and subscribe to us at SimSpeed TV. Every little bit helps. We love bringing these races to you, and we hope you can join us for the next one of these. The Geodesic Racing, Alpinestars Geodesic Racing Sprint Series, Australasia. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.